This week, I'm begging you and anyone else to avoid the grocery store at all costs because going in there, I went in there today and I instantly wanted to gouge out my eyes with a rusty fork or a banana.
It's a contrast there. Rusty fork.
Or a banana. Well, banana might because you walk in and there's a sort of a kiosk of hanging bananas for 79 cents a pound. So if that's the only thing that's available, I might go for it. And we're live. Let's go. This is the Dos Podres podcast. I'm Major J, Sundance Kid. To my left, your right. We're here talking Boston sports and so much more. And Sundance, we've got a lot to talk about yet again tonight. Do we? Developing stories as we speak today. Alone. But first, it's Super Bowl week. First off, it is Super Bowl week. We've got Rams and Bengals coming up on Sunday. We're going to preview the big game. Then we're actually going to segue from that right into a new top five of favorite Super Bowl anything. Anything goes, Super Bowl, whatever. What do you love? Tell me about it. We're actually going to bring back the Celtics Shootaround after a long hiatus. Today being Thursday, recording this Thursday night. Today was the NBA trade deadline. Plenty to talk about there. We're going to close it out with another riveting 3 and out. So make sure you stick around for all of it. First off, of course, Sundance, what you sipping on?
Okay. So this evening, this one is near and dear to my heart. I have got what is straight out of Rhode Island, if you can read that can, sir. This is Whalers Rise. Whalers Rise. And it is an American pale ale. It is dry hopped. So it is a lighter on the lighter side.
You're drinking it like a champagne.
But it is a fantastic brew. I highly recommend it. It's rarely down here in Connecticut. I always get it in the summertime on vacation at the Rhode Island shore. They have it all over. It's a great one. I can't say enough about these guys.
Noted.
Whalers Rise.
Dude,
how about you?
Sponsored by the NHL. I'm not actually even partaking in a brew tonight. I decided to switch it up. No, it's okay. I chose to switch it up. It wasn't dragged and beaten and forced.
It wasn't an intervention. Okay.
The guy, the dark beer guy, didn't corner me and say, "Yeah, no, it's actually salted caramel Baileys." I realized I still had a little bit left in the bottle and said, "You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and switch it up tonight and sip on that." Even though I have plenty of old beers waiting to be popped and opened in the fridge. But yeah, that's what we're sipping on. We'll make sure we tag. I forgot who makes Baileys. And who makes yours again?
This is Whalers Rise. It is from Rhode Island. It is an APA. It is an American pale ale. And I think it's Whalers, Rhode Island.
Okay.
It's called Whalers Rise.
We'll make sure we tag them when we go out with the show. All right, let's hop into it. Start with a little rundown. A lot of news going on in the Boston sports area here. First off, we'll touch on it. MLB, Red Sox lockout situation. Obviously not much going on the Red Sox part of that, but in terms of the lockout, possibly some I put doing air quotes here, some progress. Looks like the league is conceding universal DH. I can hear Coach Emmett crying in the background as we speak right there. It also means peace out, Kyle Schwarber. Sorry, Sundance. But it looks like the universal DH is making its way into the NL. Yeah. They're also getting rid of sounds like they're conceding getting rid of the compensatory draft pick compensation for lost free agents for teams, which really is a good thing because that's going to help a lot of transactions to move forward, whereas teams have been hesitant to do things because of we can get draft picks. They're getting rid of that, so I think that's actually going to
opens up the funnel a bit. But you hate to see it from a fan perspective, from a team that often lets guys walk.
Hey, Pittsburgh.
And we know we're going to get a draft pick back.
Right.
That's not going to be happening.
Right. It's no longer part of the strategy. Right.
I imagine Chaim Bloom with our Boston Red Sox is not overly thrilled with this move, but going to have to live with it and adjust.
Yeah, no, agreed. Rob Manfred actually said today that the plan is no missed spring training games, much less any missing games from the regular season. Definitely wants to start on time, March 31st, 162 games, all the bells and whistles there. Sure, we'll see. I'll believe it when I see it.
Unless you wake up on Super Bowl Sunday and a deal has been struck,
right?
There is no way spring training games are starting on time.
Thank you. So. And supposedly the league's new proposal is coming. They're actually meeting Saturday. So maybe what you speak of is possible. Again, not holding my breath, but it really comes down to this weekend. We'll see if the league or the owners are actually serious about playing ball, because the players have made concessions right off the bat early on. And from all intent, other than this whole DH stuff and the draft pick stuff, the owners have not made any concessions whatsoever. So, pretty much standard fare.
So don't want to drag this out. There's really, a little bit of news, but not really. The only thing that I believe would kick both parties in the butt to get to the table and get something done is the fact that it is glaringly, widely well known that baseball has just dipped off the charts, while NFL, NBA, even hockey, like we've talked about, hockey has, maintained.
I know hockey signed these new TV deals this year. There's a reason why they're able to do that.
Listen, I someone's got to get these guys together and say, you are only driving a stake through the heart of the game.
Yeah.
And I know that stuff has come up in years past, not like in 2022.
This feels pivotal. This really feels pivotal.
Different. I can tell you from the local little leagues right up and through high school, kids are choosing different sports, different activities.
Yeah.
This is not a way to grow the game. So we'll see.
Completely agree. One other thing I wanted to point out too that I thought was funny that I did read about with regards to the Sox. Not a fan of this guy, Jim Bowden, former GM. He writes for The Athletic. He's on SiriusXM a ton. I personally think he's a blowhard. Generally, I can't stand him. But I did get baited into reading this article on The Athletic, and he did a one move every team should make after the lockout ends type of deal. His move was for the Sox to go and sign Correa to a 10-year, $300 million deal and move Devers to first and bogey over either second or something along those lines. So I thought you'd find that interesting.
Okay.
He also, ironically, his one move for the Giants was to go and sign Seiya Suzuki. So I found that ironically interesting given the nature of our talks about the Sox over the last, since the season ended. But all right, as far as the Bruins go, not much movement there. We just came out of the All-Star break. They're still 4th in the Atlantic, 8th in the Eastern Conference, etc. They came out of the break losing 4-2 to Pittsburgh on Tuesday night. Good news. Pasternak, 2 more goals. We already talked about that last week with Coach Emmett. Bad news. Bergeron knocked out with a head injury. He has a history of concussions. He's not playing tonight against Carolina. Who knows what's going on with that?
Yeah.
Marchand, more importantly,
big suspension.
6-game suspension because he couldn't control himself at the end of that game. Tristan Jarry in net actually said something to him, mouthed something. Marchand went and decked him, punched him, threw a punch at him, and then on top of it tried to high stick him in the cage on the way by. On top of it, game misconduct, match penalty. You're out 6 games. Love Marchand, but what a move on his part. Like, what an absolute, unbelievable. This team is potentially screwed over the next week without these two, potentially Bergeron for a while and Marchand, because you've got, now you got to rely on guys like Taylor Hall coming up. DeBrusque wants to trade. You're depending on guys, and Pasta is essentially your only offense to carry this team, and they've got a tough stretch coming up. Next week, they've got Carolina tonight, as we're watching right now in the second period. They're down 3-0. This could be a shutout. You got Ottawa Saturday. That's maybe a potential win, hopefully. But then you get the Rangers, the Islanders. They're up for in a rough stretch. It's not good. Thanks a lot, Marchand. And only other thing on the, if you want to jump in, let me know. But the only other piece of news, obviously, is Tuukka went ahead and, as Coach Emmett predicted, on point, listened to his body, decided he couldn't do it anymore, understandably, and he called it a career. So, Tuukka, to you, we say thank you. Happy trails. Appreciate everything you did for this team.
Yeah, not much more to add there. Although to your point, Coach Emmett was pretty spot on. Called it really.
Absolutely nailed it.
Absolutely. I
nailed
mean,
it.
my reaction when he said it last week was, "Wow, you think so?" And he said, I would bet. So I'm not. I don't know if Coach Emmett has a direct link into the Bruins organization, but that was a solid call on his part. Yeah, this is a tough stretch for the Bruins. We're going to see if they can weather it and where they come out the other side, because even though they've had some strong stretches of play throughout the season, not much to show for it. The standings are bunched up, so it is what it is.
It is. All right, so then that leads us to the Celtics, which we're not going to go too much into right now because we have them later on. But just as an update, standings-wise, they have moved up to 7th in the East. That's kind of a big move. 31-25, actually a half game out of 6th, which is key to get out of that 7-10 range, ideally for the playoffs. 6 in a row, 8-9. Destroy Brooklyn on the road Tuesday night. Granted, no Kyrie, no Durant, no Harden, whatever. Those are games you got to take advantage of and win. They did it convincingly. We've talked about it before. Maybe things are coming together. The defense has really been buoying this team for like a solid month to 6 weeks now. We had the trade deadline that was today. We'll get into that a little bit later. Upcoming games, you got Denver Friday night, Atlanta Sunday, at Philly Tuesday, which would have been daunting already, but as we'll talk about later, that's going to be even tougher now. And they got Detroit again at home next Wednesday night. So that's a little stretch of games this week coming up for the Celtics. We'll get into that a little bit later. And then really it's just the Patriots, rather. Not a ton going on there, but Tom Brady already talked about if his comeback is going to last, etc. To that, I'd say, please shut the hell up. I don't want to hear about that at all. He retired. I want to move on. Yeah. Joe Judge has returned to coach as an offensive assistant with this team. So we're just bringing back the old gang. We already brought back Matt Patricia, and we got Joe Judge coming back. Again, maybe Bill O'Brien will make his way back. It's a reunion of sorts. And then in some news yesterday, Roger Goodell giving his kind of State of the League address before the Super Bowl. Deflategate was brought up. And not to get too crazy into that, but a report did just come out by Florio basically showing out that the league back in 2005 essentially expunged and got rid of air pressure data that more or less would have said the Pats were within the approved PSI range guidelines, et cetera, and would have left enough of a reasonable doubt to move on instead of carrying on their goddamn witch hunt to make a point to
make an
Brady
example
for 4
of
games.
Brady.
Yep, yeah. That's what they did. So I think it's hilarious that he skirted it as much as he could during that press conference. But the data it's basically been proven out that they swept it under the rug, said don't use this, get rid of it, so they can move on with their own agenda. So I thought that was interesting, but all right, let's that's a nice little segue, get into some football. Let's get into the Super Bowl preview. Unless you had anything you want to talk about with the Pats.
Nope, all good.
Nope. All right, let's get into the Super Bowl. It's Super Bowl week. Nope, it's not our Super Bowl favorites. It's our Super Bowl preview. Super Bowl 56. Big game. I believe Rams basically playing at home. Still looks like they're still giving 4 points, which makes sense. What's your first impression of this game? Anyone you're rooting for? What do you think?
Rooting for the Bengals, but this is not a hard sell here. This is not a hard rooting. I will be fine if the Rams win, as I've stated here previously before. I'm a Sean McVay fan. Love what Joe Burrow's doing. I'm going to root for Joe Burrow. This is it's a classic. I just hope it's a good game, right? And it's lining up to be. I'm excited to see Jamar Chase. I'm excited for Von Miller, Aaron Donald.
So many stars, so many big names that could just show out with this game.
Cup. It's a lot of really good football players in this game. And you don't always get that. Sometimes you get it only on one side, and you're just like, well, hopefully, it's within 2 touchdowns at the end. This one,
unless anything can happen with this game,
unless McVay really exploits the ever-loving God out of the Bengals defense, which is super suspect. I anticipate. Listen, Super Bowls are funny. Wonky things happen. A fumble here, a tipped interception, a bad call, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I can't believe Cincinnati's up 14-0, with 5 minutes into the game. So I'm going to hope for a really entertaining, whacked out Super Bowl. I hope it's competitive. We'll see. I am going to, shall I put in my prediction?
Yeah, let's throw it in there.
I'm going to go Rams 28-17. Rams 28-17.
Wow. Okay. All right. That's all right. So you got them covering. Yeah. I my sentiment on this pretty much echoes yours in that I don't even know that I'm rooting for either team. I'm just rooting for a fun game. Like I like so many things about both teams. I'm like, you know what? Just give me a fun game. Give me a game that goes down to the last possession or two, because I'm going to be into it. I'm going to be rooting probably for whoever has the ball last. Burrow, man, that kid is unflappable. I mean, we're not saying anything that hasn't been said for the last month about this kid anyway. But man, talk about the next coming of a Joe Cool. This kid, like I said, he has not lost a postseason game since 2004 at his state championship. Like, that's insane to me when I saw that.
It's impressive.
But I think a lot of it's going to come down. And again, I'm not breaking any news here. The Rams pass rush, like you were just talking about, you got Von Miller, you got guys like Leonard Floyd, Donald up the middle. They're basically number one in win rate in the NFL. Can the offensive line for Cincinnati keep doing what they've been doing, find a way to stabilize and just hold that pass rush at bay enough to keep, allowing Burrow to get rid of the ball? Like, I'm sure Cincinnati's probably going to scheme a lot of stuff to offset that. Just a lot of quick throws, a lot of chipping with the backs, etc. They're going to have to scheme it out. I think they're going to find a way to maybe keep it at bay a little bit and at least get that ball out of his hands to make plays to like Jamar Chase, maybe in the intermediate areas. And you may not see as much deep stuff because he may not have the time to get the ball deep, but I think they can scheme it so he's getting the ball into his receiver's hands early and letting them make the plays. I'm curious to see if Stafford can continue to limit his mistakes, because we've seen both in Detroit and this year at times he gets a little interception happy. Sometimes his own fault, sometimes not. But I'm curious to see, and if the Cincinnati defense can do enough to even force those mistakes. They got a couple of good bookend defensive ends in Trey Hendrickson and Hubbard, who can make some hay there. So I'm curious how that's going to work out. I'm curious, going back to what you said, Jamar Chase, especially. I want to see if Ramsey's going to be put on him one-on-one, or if how they're going to work coverage and roll coverage towards Chase to try to limit him, if they're going to do that and try to let T. Higgins and other guys beat them, or what. I'm curious to see, and we talked about this last week, how much of a home field advantage this is going to be for LA. Because like you were saying, and I'm kind of swaying more and more to your side on this, Cincinnati's probably going to travel pretty well for this. And you mix that in with the fact that you're talking about a team that doesn't traditionally show out as being the hardcore diehard fan as much as it's LA. Like when you talk about with the Dodgers, they show up in the third inning, leave by the sixth. It's just to be there.
Yeah.
How much of that's going to be the case? I don't know.
1,000%. I mean, you get a shot of, Leonardo. You get a shot of Bradley Cooper.
Yucking it up in his bungalow by the end zone.
Rihanna. She's checking her phone. Which Kardashian's at the game. And, just when the game is getting really crazy at the 5-minute mark in the third quarter, they're all gone. They've all gone home. And so you do wonder if Cincinnati ends up having a little tiny bit of a home edge here. We'll find out. I'm with you. I'm hoping for a great game. Give me your prediction. What's the final score?
I'm going to go ahead and say, let's just, they're going to,
I already know.
I'm going to go, I think they're going to finish it off.
Joe Burrow.
It's going to, Burrow's going to lead it on an end of game drive and take this game 24-21 Bengals.
Love it. Great. All right.
All right, so now we've covered that. Let's get into some fun here. Let's talk about. We haven't done a top 5 in a while, so we're going to be doing our top 5 Super Bowl favorites. This is just going to be anything you love. It's near and dear to you about the Super Bowl, about the big game, about the day. Anything you want to throw out there that warms your heart, you name it. Sundance, what's your number 5? Lead us off.
Oh, come on. It's an easy one. I'm going to just get it out of the way now. The food. The food is always fun. You get to just... Listen, I'm a big options guy. I like to have...
Oh, really?
I like to have...
You're not just going to you can just serve you some mac and cheese and you're like, oh, thanks. No, you want... Lay it out for me. Let me pick.
I am not completely big on community food. However, when it comes to the Super Bowl, I like options. I like
your plate perfectly curated to your liking. Okay.
I just there's something that is reassuring knowing that there's a lot of different things to choose from here, and if I really like this one, the chances of it being gone before the second quarter are not high because there's so many other options for other people. So I know I can go back and get those spicy habanero wings because not everyone's going to love them. That's the great thing about options. So the food, 1000%, light it up. I'm ready for the food on Sunday.
What do you have a favorite? What's your favorite Super Bowl snack food? Do you have? Can you narrow it down?
Oh gosh, there's so many. So I love the honey barbecue Swedish meatballs. Those are incredible. You can eat them with a fork. You can eat them with a toothpick. I love the chorizo that is barbecued with the green olive and a toothpick through it. And listen, any seafood on Super Bowl Sunday is going to be really good. So
I need to start coming to your Super Bowl parties.
Yeah, there's too many good foods out there to choose from.
All right, that's fair. All right, my number 5. I'm gonna go in with a nice easy one. For me, it's not so much anymore, but up until say 2 years ago, it would have been just the parties, the get-togethers, being able to see people I don't normally get to see or hang out with, especially coming off the holidays.
Yeah.
I just like the big get-togethers with a bunch of people to finally hang out, eat, drink, be merry, and high five and be around. That aura again.
You're such a Portuguese. You're such a Portuguese. Yep, comes through.
That's true. For anyone who watching, listening, Sundance is right. I am half Portuguese. Guilty. But I like. That's my element. I like to be around people. I like to hang out. I like to enjoy it with everyone. Be around the giant experience. But in general, just the big parties is what I'm about. I'm a showman. What can I say? All right, I'm going to go into my number 4.
Yes.
My number 4 is actually what your number 5 was. It is the food. Okay. I'm going to be specific here. I had to think through this, but I thought, you know what? I don't consciously do this, but I'm realizing this is what I gravitate to. I'm generally like, you know what? You can have the wings. I'm going to take the nachos. But like you said, sort of, I have to look at it and examine it early on because it is a community food generally. Yeah, give me some nachos because I can have more of them. That's what it comes down to.
Nachos are great. Yep.
What's your number 4?
Number 4. I had to get this one in there somewhere. It landed at number 4. It was Seattle destroying Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. I don't know what Super Bowl number it was, 48, 44. I don't know, but it was awesome to watch Von Miller get down and absolutely harass Peyton Manning. Von Miller was actually Von Miller was on the other side. I'm thinking of the Seattle linebackers.
Bobby Wagner still at that point?
It might have been. I'm gonna have to Google it. But they were. Listen, Seattle was like.
That's when Seattle was in their prime of their.
Seattle was like the defensive team of the century. They were like the 86 Chicago Bears.
Right.
It was just like, you're not beating this team. And going into it, people were kind of like, hey, Peyton Manning, the Broncos had a nice year. This is going to be a good Super Bowl. I remember that. I remember feeling like, oh, I don't want to watch Peyton Manning win a Super Bowl.
Was that Manning's record touchdown season of 52?
It probably was. It probably was, because it was a good season for him.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, I could not believe how Seattle just absolutely destroyed them. It was great to watch as an anti-Manning fan. So that is my number 4.
Love it. That's a good one. All right, what's number 3?
Number 3. I'm looking at this now, and it should have been higher. So I'm going to qualify it with that. What number 3 is? I'm going to leave it. It is the Devin Hester kickoff return touchdown to begin Super Bowl, I don't know, like 45 or whatever it was. It was when the Bears ended up losing to, I think, the Colts, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was
I believe it was the Colts. But Devin Hester, I believe it was the kickoff to begin the Super Bowl, and Hester ran back for a touchdown.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's actually going to play into one of mine further ahead. So that's a good one. That's a really good one. When you open up a Super Bowl with an electric play like that gets you ready for anything that game.
Yeah.
All right, I like
great.
it. Number 3 for me. This is, again, kind of more general. Number 3 is going back to number 5 with the parties and hanging out and being with a group of people. Usually it's being like an all-day thing. With that comes pregame boozing. That's just a general thing. I like to pregame booze. I don't drink that much in general. But that Super Bowl Sunday is the day that I tend to drink more than any other day during the year, I think. That's usually because we start going early afternoon and work our way up to the game. And I just like it because usually where I'm at, there's a plethora of options. And like, again, going back to what you said earlier with options with the food, I'm like that with alcohol. And if you have a lot there, I'm going to want to try each thing because, oh, that's new. Haven't tried this before. I'm famous for that. Never tried this one before. You know, and I'm gonna dip into everything. Generally, guilty of that with Lone Star Al. Actually, he tends to have a plethora of beers ready and waiting in his refrigerator when he hosts, and at least he did. And I'm gonna want to try everything at that point. Unfortunately, sometimes it does come back to haunt me. Notably, Super Bowl 43, which was the Steelers-Cardinals Super Bowl. I actually did not see a single play of that game live, as I was in a lavatory, thanks to a lot of gin and tonic mixed with some shrimp fajitas. Yes. Shout out to Bombay Gin. We'll be tagging you as well if you ever want to sponsor us. But case in point, I like to give you some pregame booze. I'm guilty of it. I don't know what to tell you. Rolling into number 2. My number 2 is gambling and betting on these games. You know me, I love to bet. I'll bet on everything in these games. All angles of the game, every player, anything that can happen, I'm going to bet on it. You've got squares you can play at these games, right? Which are always fun. You got the game itself and all kinds of lines. You got player props. To the point where I'll bet all this stuff, and I know by the time that game starts, there's no way I can come out ahead in these bets. I have so much money going in different places.
Prop bets are fun. Yeah, prop
They're
bets
fun.
are really
and you're
fun.
sitting there. That's the thing is, from the second you sit down and watch this game, starting with that first play, you're locked in because you're like, oh, everything matters. There's some bet you placed. Again, forgetting the fact that in the end, it means you can't really come out ahead at all, but it's fun to think you can. So I don't really care. I have interest. Basically, it keeps me interested, especially when the games that the Pats have not been in the Super Bowl. It makes it even more interesting for me. So the Super Bowl betting, wagering, etc. That's my number 2. I love it. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is it's interesting. It's a favorite, but it's a favorite because it is still to this day shrouded in mystery. It is why did Malcolm
Goody
Butler?
Proctor.
Why did Malcolm Butler not play a single defensive down in Super Bowl
That's
51, whatever it is. I don't remember the number. It was
Yeah.
the Eagles Super Bowl.
Oh, the Eagle. Was it the Eagles Super Bowl?
Oh, yes, it was. Oh, it was, my
confused
friend,
them all.
because
Just
nobody
by,
played defense in that game.
40.
Patriots didn't play defense.
No, it wasn't 47.
Eagles didn't play defense. I'll tell you what. Again, this is the Puritanism in me coming out. I'm punishing myself, but I love a good conspiracy theory. I love that kind of stuff.
Right.
No one has ever come out and said definitively,
Right.
like,
We benched
you can
him, we did
confirm this
something.
with 5 other players. It's,
Which I don't.
well, Matt Patricia said this. Well, Rob Ninkovich said that.
It seems like something in a spot that big, we would have gotten a story by now.
There's all kinds of things. There's, he was really sick and missed too much practice. He just wasn't very good at the end of the season. He was doing drugs. He was late on curfew. He punched Steve Belichick in the face. He mouthed off to Steve Belichick. There's all kinds of theories out there that I've heard. And when you start to hear all different kinds, you're kind of like, what? And even, Malcolm Butler has not come out yet and said what happened there. So that's my number 2, is the Malcolm Butler benching. I'm going to roll it down, or rather up, which plays into the Malcolm Butler being benched. Mine ties back to your number 3 there, Major J. There's a tradition that I was not actually familiar with up until a few years ago, the Eagles-Pats Super Bowl, which is you take a shot every time your team scores. And so I'll tell you, I do recall
the first one or two.
The first one or two. Getting home that night and just being like, did Malcolm Butler play tonight? And I just blacked out. You know what I mean?
Well, here's the thing, though. That says that you were actually still somewhat there because you remembered the fact you didn't see the guy.
But listen, it's a fun tradition when you get multiple people doing it.
Sure.
Everybody is safe. You have designated drivers, all that good stuff. That's a fun little tradition. I have to be honest with you. In my 44 years on this earth, it was the first time I did it just 5-6 years ago with the Eagles-Pats Super Bowl, and it's a fun tradition. It really is. It makes scoring sometimes even more fun, and other times you're like, please don't score here. I don't think I could do another shot.
What was the drink of choice that night? Do you remember? Or was there even one? Did run down a line?
I will try to get that information while we are recording. I don't remember. I do recall it came from Jamaica, so I will get that for you.
It's probably some kind of rum, which would explain a lot. All right, that's I love it. All right, well then, for me, my number 1, and it's not going to be any one in particular, although I am going to end it with one specifically, but generally speaking, it goes back to like your Devin Hester reference. It's these iconic plays. These plays that my memory is going in old age the last year or two, probably like a lot of people after COVID, but I'll forget teams that win the Super Bowl, much less the team that lost it or who played in it a lot of times. I'm going to remember the big plays, like that Hester play, like the Edelman catch. It's Super Bowl 51, which we highlighted last week with our Brady moments, which with the David Tyree helmet catch in 42. The farging Mario Manningham catch down the sideline in 46 from Eli.
Painful.
And stuff like the
that was more
kick.
painful than the Tyree.
Yes.
The Tyree was like, but the Manningham, you were just like, there's no way.
There's no way.
That.
There's no way. And somehow
he's not in bounds. I've never played organized football in my life, but that guy was not in bounds. He was in bounds.
And the fact it was Mario Manningham. Like, really? Anyway, Michigan alum. Vinatieri winning the 36 with the kick. The Malcolm Butler interception. All these iconic plays. The Kevin Dyson in Super Bowl 34 getting stopped at the 1-yard line. That Mike Jones tackle with the Rams and Titans. Like, these things, like these moments are why we watch Super Bowl, and like that's what it'll always come down is like wanting to sit and watch and see that one huge iconic play. It started for me actually. The first Super Bowl I ever paid attention to or even noticed, cared about, whatever, Super Bowl 20, when the Pats were playing the Bears and got trounced. Was it 46-10 or whatever it was? But the iconic play from that game that always kind of stuck with me and kind of led through was when William Refrigerator Perry, defensive tackle, Refrigerator Perry, plunged into the end zone for a 1-yard touchdown run. And I always remember that being the whoa from that game. And that kind of started this history of like paying attention to these huge moments that always seem to pop up in these games. So for me, I'm, especially in a game like this weekend, not really rooting hard for one team or the other, just wanting to watch a good game. I'm just sitting back, looking, waiting for like this big play, this amazing play that's going to, shoot someone up to a superstar. So that's
I do have an update.
Ooh.
It was Hennessy White, which is only produced out of the Caribbean. I am told. It was Hennessy.
So
White.
To that, I'd say I am instantly happy you are even here recording this podcast with me.
Oh, it was a high-scoring game. That's all I can tell you.
Oh wow! Did you have the next day off? Did you take the next day off? Well, glad you made it through. All right.
Shame on me.
So that caps off our top 5 Super Bowl faves. Looking forward to a nice game this weekend. Actually, as we're rolling closer and closer to it, I actually can't wait for the game now. So I think it's gonna be a good time. All right, so let's get out of that. Let's get into some more local business here. Celtics Shootaround. We've got some Celtics stuff to talk about. We dabble here and there week to week. This is a week we focused on the Bruins and Sox last week. This is a week we need to talk about some C's because, especially again, today is what was the trade deadline in the NBA. Wasn't sure what was going to happen on the Celtics side, but
I had an idea.
We knew what Stevens was trying to do, but I wasn't until we saw it happen. I wasn't sure if what he was really going to get done. And I'll tell you, right off the bat, you can tell you that what we knew were potentially the goals for Brad Stevens going into his first trade deadline as a GM, essentially, he hit them all. And I will say before we get into that, I want to step on one thing and get it out of the way. The Sixers and Nets pulling off this essentially James Harden for Ben Simmons deal. I cannot wait to see that. I hope to God it implodes on both sides.
Yeah.
Not likely on the Sixers side, honestly. I think the Sixers actually stole James Harden. The fact that he turned around and also opted in his 1 year, opted in for next season as well. The Sixers, you just gave up a guy that wasn't playing for you at all and wasn't going to play for you for a star player. Granted, they gave up some picks, Andre Drummond, etc. But I mean, I think it definitely pushes the Sixers up to the top of the conference to compete with Milwaukee. The Nets, we'll see. You still have to deal with Kyrie. You're still only playing half his games, and Durant's hurt and everything else. I have a feeling it could easily crash and burn for Brooklyn, but I'm curious to see how it shakes out. But it had been rumored for a couple of days. It actually happened. I hope to God it just fails miserably. But
so a lot of angles on this to cover, and we can do it quickly. Number one, Steve Nash had been saying regularly for the last week, James Harden isn't going anywhere. I've talked to our GM. I've talked to James Harden. He hasn't told me he wants to leave. James Harden wants to be a part of the Nets. I'm telling you that. And that's, where he is today. That was as of this morning's shoot around.
So James Harden's crying now. He must be terribly upset.
Kind of makes you scratch your head. Listen, I get there's a big giant poker game going on around any trade deadline. But for Steve Nash to look at reporters and say, he told me he wants to be here. Like, you could just simply say, trades are part of the business. I like my team. If we improve, we improve. Right. If we don't do anything, we don't do, don't say.
Right now, James Harden is in net. That's what we're focusing on the next game with him being a part of this team.
So he was trying to sell it hard that, Harden was not going anywhere. If you're James Harden, listen, you are ecstatic to be out of Kyrie hell, because that's where he was.
And that's actually, go ahead, but as you do that, I want to bring up
some inside stories. We've heard some whispers. It is now coming out that Harden was just like, it was trouble in paradise. It was just, this guy Kyrie, I can't deal with him. And Harden was going into this season looking at Kyrie and saying, you're really not going to get vaccinated so we can all get on the court and win a title? Are you kidding me?
He's not going to be pressured,
Harden, and
Sundance.
I
He's
know
not
Harden
going to be
doesn't
pressured.
come across as Mr. Principal,
Right.
but I'm going to tell you this,
Not a fan favorite by any means.
the man knows how talented he is. And he was going to Brook. He wants to win. He was going to Brooklyn to get a title. I really like James Harden. Of the three, Harden,
he's
Kyrie,
the least insufferable.
and Durant. I take James Harden every day of the week. I really
would. Not
a
fan per se, but absolutely of those three, it's not even close, honestly.
Good for Philly getting rid of Ben Simmons, who is not that good and was sitting out. Like, bye, see ya. They probably don't like to see Seth Curry leave, but it was part of the deal.
Right.
Good for. Listen, now I will say this. Harden is going from one mercurial star to another in Joel Embiid, but Embiid wants to win at all costs. Yeah. You do know that. I mean, Embiid wants to win at all costs, and he's just ticked off if you don't play well. You kind of appreciate that as a fan, so sure. I think Philly's going to be really, really interesting.
One side note too is the deadline did pass today, and one trade that was not made is that Kevin Durant nor Kyrie Irving were traded to the Russian national team, so that did not happen. Unfortunately, to never be seen again. But I think
waiver deal.
I think this worked out well for Philly. The fact they didn't have to give up Tyrese Maxey or Matisse Thybulle, any of those other kids that were like burgeoning stars.
Yeah.
Bully for Philly. But no, I just wanted to touch on that before we get into the C stuff. But yeah, like I said, the C's got a lot of stuff done today. I mean, the first thing is the one thing that we knew Brad wanted to do, everyone knew Brad wanted to do, was get under the luxury tax threshold. So he was able to send off PJ Dozier and Bol, who we got in a previous trade, essentially moved around some draft pick stuff, second round draft pick stuff, to essentially shed the payroll, get under that thing by like $1 million over. Okay, step one done, cool. I'm all about the logistical stuff and the tax threshold and everything. So they've reset themselves there. Then more importantly, we had a couple of big trades. Let's go to the first one, which was Josh Richardson, Romeo Langford, and a top 4 protected first-round pick in this year's coming draft to San Antonio, essentially for Derek White, who I'm going to admit right now, I'm not highly familiar with Derek White in his play, probably because he's in San Antonio.
I think that's the overall consensus across every New England state tonight is I'm not really familiar with his game.
I'm going to read up on this, and then I'll get back to it. Yeah. After reading up on it, and him, seems like a good deal. Everyone seemed to grade it out well. He seems like he's essentially a Marcus Smart type player in that, although there's a little more scoring potential there, he's just having a down year shooting, but he's that type of player where he's a backcourt guy. He can score, distribute, plays hard defensively, should fit in well into that backcourt rotation with the guards to the point where he's probably going to be the 3 coming in potentially behind Jalen and Smart. And let's be real, Smart is not to say necessarily by any fault of his own, not the picture of health all the time. He plays hard. He ends up getting knocked. That's fine. So to have some kind of high-end depth.
When you play hard, you get hurt.
Thank you. It happens. And we talked about this before. If you're hurt and you miss time because you're playing hard and it's legit, then cool. I'm sorry you got hurt, but that's legit. We get it. Fine. It's as opposed to we're managing you. So Marcus Smart gets legitimately hurt because he plays his ass off, and that's why people appreciate it and appreciate him. So having some high-end depth behind that is good, and it actually ended up kind of fronting another trade, the next trade, which was Schroeder going. So now you throw, okay, well, now we have a lot of backcourt, backup there.
Someone had to go.
And
you knew it was Schroeder. You knew it.
You knew it was going to be Schroeder because, again, that was on the obvious list of what Brad wanted to get done. Was, all right, if anyone makes sense to be sent out, it's Schroeder. Despite how this team – the fact that this team has been playing well, and he hasn't been a huge part of it. So it almost kind of worked out perfectly in that this team kind of went ahead, has taken a step the last month to 6 weeks, and they haven't had to rely on him and put the team and Brad in a position where you really had to decide – do I keep this guy because he's really a big part of what's going on with this team, taking a step forward as opposed to trying to shed the payroll, etc. They've been playing well without him being a huge part of that rotation, so he made it easy. Like you can get rid of him, which you want to do anyway, and not disturb what's going on with this team, which was fantastic. So they actually ended up moving Schroeder, Freedom, and Fernando, who no one even knows because I don't think he even played a minute for this team, to Houston for old friend and your favorite and somebody you have lobbied for previously.
Let's go.
Daniel Theis. So
Let's go. We're getting Theis back. I love this. I called this a couple of weeks ago. I didn't think it was going to happen. So Scout's honor.
I'm putting this one. I'm going to put this one up there, right next to Coach Emmett's call on Tuca.
I didn't have high hopes for this one. Can I be honest with you? I'm going to be straight up. I'm glad to see Freedom go. I was really down with everything he stood for. Sure. I promise you, I still am. That guy's terrible. He is like the 12-year-old kid that is 6'6" playing Parks and Rec basketball on your kid's team, where you say to yourself, I'll tell you what, if that kid ever learns how to play basketball, he's going to be incredible. I mean, Freedom was just terrible. So, so glad to see him go, and so glad to get Daniel Theis back. Theis is such an underrated, dynamic big man. And what a nice piece to complement Time Lord, because he's going to need his time management with time load.
And that's a perfect point, because I think now that you've got a big man rotation potentially of Time Lord, Horford, and Theis, who Theis has a skill set, not obviously to the extent that Horford does, being able to guard a 5 and shoot.
Right.
But Theis has an eclectic type skill set in that he complements and can sub off those minutes from Horford while complementing Time Lord. I think you've got a nice front court, big man type rotation. All we know is after these trades, I mean, this is the best trade deadline I've seen in a while. Like knowing
not a blockbuster, but a really good trade deadline.
You did everything everyone knew you wanted to do. You got it done. You improved this team. I feel like this team now feels more like the team that we know and liked the last couple of years. Went into the season like, oh, this is kind of weird. I don't, and trying to get a feel for this team. Now this feels more like the Celtics team we're used to. We like it. Just has a better feeling to it. And that's on top of it. So they got below the tax threshold. They got some core players that are really going to help out. And they have like 5 open roster spots to either go sign minimum vet guys or bring guys up from Maine or something. So I'm really curious after all this on top of it.
Yep.
Who else is going to round out this roster?
Yeah,
who's out there?
I will. My final thought on it is I'm with you on all points. I love the deals. Brad potentially strokes of genius.
I'm impressed.
I won't be surprised as soon as next year to see Romeo Langford averaging 20 points, 5 assists, and 6 rebounds. I just don't think they had room for him to grow. And
that's what it is.
That's too bad. But listen, I love this has been a wonderful trade deadline. Marcus Smart is still here. Jaylen Brown is still here. Tatum is still here.
Grant Williams is still here.
Grant Williams? I love Grant Williams. You love what he does. So some great non-moves coupled with those shrewd moves that Brad was able to do.
He was able to unload every guy that we were like, okay, that's okay. Yep. And he got rid of them all. Like he didn't have to.
I don't care if he goes. You can send him away. Please get rid of him.
And get everything done he wanted to do.
It's
crazy.
Back, so
I feel like it rarely happens where you know the moves that need to get done. You get them done. You don't have to concede anything else, and you're good. It's like, okay, wow, this team now potentially has room to sign a bigger player in the offseason too with the payroll flexibility they now have. So I'm looking forward to it. They've got, and so we'll just say in terms of the rest of the season, I think it's like 27 games left, give or take at this point. But a lot of those games are against teams that have records worse than Boston. So they're set up potentially pretty well to make a run to stay out of the bottom 7 to 10 range is what I'm mainly focused on. That I'd love to get in the top 4, which they can do, but as long as they can stay 6 or higher, is ideal.
It's appetizing to look at it that way. Somehow it never works out that way with the Celtics. So I am guarded optimism. I love these moves. I won't be surprised if we lose 5 of 7 somewhere in there.
Right.
But I think overall we're gonna be fine. Yeah, I like it. I love the moves. That's
a good point though. This team, if out of any team in this area, the Celtics are like the Pacino Godfather. As soon as I'm out, they pull me back in. Cue that.
That's when I thought I was out. They pulled me back in.
But yeah, we'll see. I'm at least, this is the most optimistic I've been about this team in a while. You've got me paying attention. Kudos to you, Brad Stevens. Maybe you are a GM after all. All right, so that's what we got for the Celtics. So let's cap this all off. Let's do a 3 and out and get out of here. 3 and out, first down. Sundance, I'll take the lead here as my first one. It goes back to Super Bowl stuff. Basically, it's Super Bowl season. My PSA, I think my PSA last week was essentially to maybe it was a couple weeks ago, to just make sure you pay to have your taxes done. Don't do it yourself. This is a new PSA. This is more than ever. I'm an advocate for generally avoiding the grocery store if you can. This week, I'm begging you and anyone else to avoid the grocery store at all costs, more than you normally would, because going in there, I went in there today and I instantly wanted to gouge out my eyes with a rusty fork or a banana or whatever was available, because it's insanity. You've got idiot.
It's a contrast there. Rusty fork.
Or a banana. Well, banana might, because you walk in and there's a sort of a kiosk of hanging bananas for 79 cents a pound. So if that's the only thing that's available, I might go for it. It might lead to infection on the same. But you got idiots parking in the parking lot who can't get between the lines. You've got chaos in the aisles with people think they're in London and they're going up the left side. It's, you're just trying to get some almonds and no one can figure out what kind of Twizzlers they want. You've got people who don't know how to use the effing self-checkout. Like, you can't get any easier than a self-checkout. But whatever. You got lines at the checkout lines where you do have a cashier that are going in all directions and they're blocking so you can't get through. It's insanity. Stay away from the freaking grocery stores this week. I'm begging you. That's my first down. Sundance, take it for second down, please.
Ooh, tough to follow up, but here comes second down. I got my answer this week on the Patriots' defensive meltdown down the stretch. I don't know if you caught Matt Judon's.
I did not read it. I saw the headline. I'm actually looking at the headline right now on 98.5 Sports Hub.
I gotta tell you, you're not gonna like what you read or hear from Judon.
I'm gonna bring it up right now. Let's read it right now. I don't know, honestly. We kind of just played some good teams and we weren't playing our best ball, and you can't do that at the end of the season. There's really no excuses. I wish I could be like, well, this person got hurt, but it wasn't that. It was just we weren't playing good football. That's a real quote. That's actually from the interwebs, folks.
Oh, God. I don't know how long it took his agent to blow up his phone after he read or saw that or was listening to it live to say, Matt, what are you doing? Tell them about the rib injury. Tell them your wrist was broken. Like, I am shocked. Listen. This is why Baltimore. Listen,
I'm reading that live, man. I don't know what to say about that.
This is why Baltimore said, we're gonna take a pass. We're gonna let Matt walk.
I'm not gonna pay you all that money.
He did have a very quiet track record of fading, and I'll tell you, I'm disappointed because that tells us exactly what we feared. Oh my God, they're just crumbling. They're just shoulders. They're healthy. Sorry. They are just not being coached well. They are not being, disciplined down the stretch here. It was just a horrendous showing. I could not be more disappointed in Bill Belichick letting this happen. That's my second down.
Yeah, that one stings. All right, my third down. It's this was pretty I actually alluded to it earlier. I'm just going to kind of reiterate. We've obviously did our swan songs with Tom Brady last week. There's been talk from the last couple of days about, like, Edelman's throwing stuff out there. And granted, he's been poked and prodded about, and as most people are from the media, little things here and there. And Brady did it himself, essentially saying, never say never. I could be back. You never know. You know what, man? Again, shut the hell up.
Be done.
You're done. If just be done. I don't want to deal with or see a Brady comeback at this point. As much as we love the guy or whatever, let it die. Go off in the sunset. End it. You don't. Even if there's no intention to actually come back, just shut your mouth. You don't need to keep putting it out there just so you stay on people's lips and keep talking about you. You've done it. You've said goodbye. Let's move on. Brady, move on because God knows Gisele's not going to let him come back. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. And if he comes back, he's getting divorced. The media needs to let it go as well. I know it's a nonstop story and everyone loves to talk about Brady and it can go on forever. But my God, I just let it go, let it die, end it. Brady, go off in the sunset. We will move on. That said, I'm going to tease this now and hold this account. At some point, we are going to debut a new segment called Como Se Llama that's going to feature historic Tom Brady receivers through his Patriot days, because I think that's going to be a good time. So, we want Brady to move off into the sunset, we're going to still have that in our back pocket and have some fun with it. But we're going to keep him relevant for one more week potentially. All right. So on that note, that ends our 3 and Out, and that's really going to kind of put a pin in the show for this week. Again, before we go, a reminder: if you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, turn notifications on. If you're listening to us in audio, make sure you rate and review. If you're not listening to us in audio but you want to, we're available on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. Pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts, we're available. Go look for us. You'll find us there, Dos Podres Podcast. Make sure you're following us on social. We put stuff out there with the show and some other stuff. We are the number 2 Padres Pod on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Dos Padres Podcast on Facebook. Make sure you find us and follow us. All part of the Not So Much World Takeover. We want you to come join us for the ride, but we're kind of stuck in neutral right now. But whatever, we still like to have a full car packed up. We're gonna be back next week. We're gonna be talking about the big game. Hopefully, it's worth talking about. I think it's gonna be, but we're gonna be reviewing that a little bit, talking about what went down. We're definitely gonna check back in on Celtics and Bruins, as we have 2 teams that are moving into potentially opposite directions, which we don't like to see, but we're gonna have to talk about it. Maybe we'll have some labor resolution in Major League Baseball after this weekend. We can kind of talk about and start looking towards spring training a little bit too, which would be kind of fun to do. But maybe some other fun stuff. We'll figure it out, but just make sure you're checking back next week to check it all out. That said, Sundance Kid, double finger guns, put them up. Bang, bang. Major J, we're Dos Padres. Hasta tus sueños. See you next week. We are out.
I got the rock star backdrop right now. Everybody gather around. Listen.